Rocky, the ultimate story of the underdog, fighting hard and going above and beyond to make it big in this 1976 classic. Rocky, of course, tells the story of Rocky Balboa, played by Sylvester Stallone, a guy trying to get by on the poor streets of Philadelphia by doing odd jobs and boxing. However, when the larger-than-life Apollo Creed, played by Carl Weathers, catches eye of Rocky, he wants to give him a chance to fight him in a boxing match in an attempt for publicity. Rocky must go above and beyond to outdo himself and take on this boxing champion in what is without a doubt one of the most uplifting and inspiring movies of all time. Where all said and done, it's not the fame and spotlight that matters to Rocky the most, but the love of a woman called Adrian. So today we are going to explore the first Rocky movie, which is without a doubt the best Rocky movie. Well, actually I do like that one that had Mr. T a lot too. Oh, and the one with the robot where Rocky goes to Russia. And the two new Creed movies are also pretty good. Okay, I love them all. So with that, 10 things that you didn't know about the original Rocky. Number 10, Stallone got the idea of Rocky from watching a real boxing match. It was March 24th, 1975 that the real Battle of Titans took place, in which Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner took part in a boxing championship match. However, this date is very important, not just for this match, but because it was also the date that a cinematic legend was born, as a young upcoming actor called Sylvester Stallone saw this match, and it inspired him to write the script for Rocky, a movie that would go on to become one of the most influential movies of the 70s, and of all time coming to think of it. To write his boxing underdog script, Stallone took inspiration from other real-life boxers, such as Rocky Marciano and Rocky Graziano, particularly his autobiography, Somebody Up There Likes Me, which itself was turned into its own movie in 1956, with Paul Newman playing Rocky. And apparently Stallone wrote the Rocky script in just 3.5 days! Number 9. No studio wanted Stallone to play Rocky. Stallone quickly got agents who represented him and his Rocky script, of which was pitched around to movie studios and producers. However, there was one big issue. Stallone insisted that he himself play Rocky Balboa, but none of the powers that be who were approached wanted Stallone to star as the movie's lead. I guess you gotta look at the context of it. Back then, Stallone wasn't a big-time actor yet. He either had minor roles here or there, or starred in movies that weren't quite mainstream, and even adult movies. The script found its way to the home of James Bond United Artists, where they were keen to make Rocky. However, they had their own ideas as to who could play the part of the underdog Italian stallion. Number 8. Potential Rockies. So United Artists wanted a big star of the time to play the title role of Rocky, without a doubt hoping that bringing in a well-established actor would bring in more movie audiences. However, some of their choices were considerably older than the Rocky character, like Burt Reynolds and Robert Redford, both of whom would have been about 40 at the time, and James Caan, who would have been about 36, and Ryan O'Neal, who was 35. Look, there's nothing wrong with these actors, I think they're all great, but in my opinion, just a little too old to play a young underachiever who hadn't found their place in life yet. However, the then 30-year-old Stallone felt that enough was enough, so he gave the studio an ultimatum. Cast him or no movie. As Stallone puts it, he just never would have forgiven himself if someone else had played Rocky. Thankfully, Rocky's producers Irwin Winkler and Robert Chartoff and their production company Chartoff Winkler Productions had a deal with United Artists that they could greenlight a movie if the budget was at a low cost, of which Rocky's budget was under $1 million. And so Rocky was greenlit with Sylvester Stallone in the part. What also helped is at that time United Artists were working on the big and grand production of the musical New York, New York, which they felt would recoup any financial losses that Rocky may cause the studio. And in a twist of fate, it was New York, New York, which was the financial disaster, with Rocky bringing in all the box office dough. You see, movie executives don't always know what they're talking about and underestimate the audience. Number 7. Other casting possibilities. Rocky aside, 2 other vital characters in the movie is that of Apollo Creed, the larger-than-life boxer who gives Rocky a chance to take him down, and Adrian, Rocky's shy and humble love interest. The part of Apollo Creed was originally given to real-life boxer Ken Norton, whom in his boxing career had several fights with Muhammad Ali. And the character of Creed was even somewhat based on Norton himself, but he ultimately left the production. So in turn, the part was then given to former professional footballer turned actor Carl Weathers, and Rocky made Weathers as big of a star as it did Sylvester Stallone. As for the role of Adrian, well, the original choice of the character was actress Carrie Snodgrass, but money disputes got in the way of her actually taking the part. According to legend, Susan Sarandon auditioned for Adrian, who at that time would have been hot off the heels from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but it was felt that she was too pretty to play the character. When Talia Shire auditioned for the role, everyone agreed that she was perfect for the part. And she is. She comes across as very shy and innocent, and has amazing chemistry with Stallone, and you can generally believe that this is the woman that Rocky falls in love with. And despite what happened to Susan Sarandon, I think she's pretty too. Number 6. Filming. Rocky was directed by John G. Avildsen, who would go on to direct the original Karate Kid trilogy, as well as a string of extremely underrated movies like The Power of One and 8 Seconds. He passed away in 2017, and I think that he was a brilliant director who knew how to tell a story, especially when it was a character going on a journey of emotional growth and triumph. Filming of Rocky had started in January 1976, with most of the movie being shot around Philadelphia, with additional scenes being filmed in Los Angeles. One of the most famous locations is the stairs that we see Rocky run up with great victory. It's truly a heartfelt moment in the movie. The location of the stairs was the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and the stairs have since been dubbed the Rocky Stairs. And of course, another classic scene is where Rocky beats his meat and practices his boxing by punching a slab of raw meat. In fact, the meat that Rocky punches became so iconic, it got its own Rocky action figure. Yeah, this really exists. Incidentally, the punching raw meat and running up the Museum of Art steps for Rocky's training was inspired by Joe Frazier's real-life training techniques. Rocky also used Steadicam, which was a new filming technology at the time. Rocky was the 3rd movie to use Steadicam. The first 2 were Bound of Glory and Marathon Man, and the technique would go on to be used in Halloween. Number 5. Cameos. Rocky actually features several cameos from famous or would-be famous stars. Future Toxic Avenger and Tromaville creator Lloyd Kaufman plays a drunk, as in that guy Rocky carries into the bar. You don't really see his face, but here is Kaufman cosplaying as his drunk Rocky character in recent years. Several members of Stallone's family turn up in the movie, such as his wife at the time, and his father, and his brother Frank. And just like the slab of meat, Frank Stallone also got his own Rocky action figure. Real-life boxer Joe Frazier also had a cameo in Rocky. And speaking of real-life boxers, in the 1977 Academy Awards, Sylvester Stallone and Muhammad Ali had a staged comical confrontation, which was apparently done to show the public that Ali didn't take any kind of offense to the Rocky movie. Speaking of faces who turn up in Rocky, it'll be disingenuous to not mention Burt Young, who plays the misguided but likeable Paulie, and Burgess Meredith, who played Rocky's foul-mouthed, no-nonsense trainer Mickey. Number 4. The music of Rocky. Another standout aspect of Rocky is of course its legendary score by movie composer Bill Conti, especially his classic Rocky theme, Gonna Fly Now. It's like the ultimate montage theme, and inspirational theme in general. Just listening to Gonna Fly Now gets you excited and in the mood to make improvements in your life. However, as memorable as Conti's Rocky music was, it nearly wasn't the case, as originally composer David Shire was asked to compose the music for Rocky, but he couldn't as he was too busy with other projects at the time, one of which being Saturday Night Fever. Director John G. Avildsen had worked with Bill Conti before, when Conti scored his previous movie, WW and the Dixie Dance Kings. But his score for that movie was ultimately rejected. But this didn't stop Avildsen from approaching Conti to score Rocky, which he agreed. And despite Conti's previous score for an Avildsen movie being rejected, Conti really struck gold with his work for Rocky. So much so, the Gonna Fly Now theme made it to #1 in the hottest 100 Billboard charts, where the song became just as popular as the movie itself. There's a nice story here that although you might fail first time round, you can really succeed to greatness when you keep going. In fact, that's kind of the Rocky story in a nutshell. Number 3. Injuries. It's here we get to the climax of the Rocky movie, the intense fight between Rocky and Apollo Creed. The fight itself is filmed and edited in a way that makes you feel like you're watching a real fight, a battle between two titans. Well, to be fair, that is kind of what it was, as filming the fight scene was something of a real boxing brawl between Stallone and Weathers, so much so that during the filming of that scene, both actors suffered injuries. Weathers got a nose injury, and Stallone was left with bruised ribs. I guess these guys really did suffer for their art. But it was definitely worth it, as it led to one of the greatest boxing match scenes in movie history. Speaking of quirks with filming, in the scene where Rocky takes Adrian on a date to the ice rink, it's explained that Rocky paid the janitor to allow him and Adrian to skate after hours, hence they were the only ones on the rink. However, this skating after hours subplot was added due to the movie's low budget, as the production couldn't afford to hire a heap of extras to be skating in the background. But in all honesty, I find that to be serendipitous, as just having Rocky and Adrian on the ice rink all alone by themselves makes it feel more personal and romantic. Number 2. Original ending. Another thing that's recognisable when it comes to the first Rocky movie is how it was the start of a franchise, which would result in a Rocky 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as well as a Creed spin-off and Creed 2, with Rocky thus far being an 8-movie film series. However, Rocky was nearly a standalone movie, only consisting of the one film, with none of the other sequels taking place, as originally Rocky was going to end with the Rocky Balboa character throwing in the towel during the final fight with Creed, where he comes to the conclusion that he doesn't want to be a professional boxer anymore, where he goes on to live happily ever after with Adrian. I guess what we were meant to take away from this original ending is that Rocky didn't need all the glitters and gold in his life now that he had Adrian by his side. But the movie was changed to see Rocky see it through to the end, which is a better ending. Otherwise, if we just had Rocky giving up, it would have made all the progress and triumph Rocky had achieved throughout the film kind of pointless and redundant. I mean, just think about it. You'll be watching the stair scene and thinking, yeah, why is he so excited? He's gonna throw in the towel anyway. Incidentally, another popular Stallone franchise, Rambo, was also going to be a standalone movie. As with that movie, First Blood, Rambo was going to die at the end of the movie until it was changed after test audiences hated it. Wow, just imagine if Rocky and Rambo, two big franchises, were just one movie events. Number 1. Box office Gonna Fly Now. Rocky broke records when it was released, with it making over $5,000 on its first day, and then $5 million on its first weekend. It would go on to make $225 million in the box office on a budget of $960,000, making it the highest grossing movie of 1976, and a true cinematic triumph. Its box office performance continued into 1977, where it became the second highest grossing movie of that year, beaten only by Star Wars. Rocky also got immense praise from critics, with Roger Ebert going as far as saying that Sylvester Stallone reminded him of a young Marlon Brando. Rocky was also nominated for a jaw-dropping 10 Academy Awards, and won 3, including Best Picture and Best Director. Yeah, and to think that no studio wanted to make this movie because Stallone wanted to star in it. With the passing of time, Rocky's popularity has continued to grow, where it's now considered one of the greatest sports movies of all time, and one of the greatest movies of the 1970s. What's interesting about Rocky is that there is something meta about the real-life success of the Rocky movie and the Rocky character. There are definitely parallels between fiction and reality, as both Rocky and the Rocky movie were seen as underdogs that no one believed in, but both fought on and came out truly victorious. I think there's a glorious message in that. making Rocky a true movie worth celebrating and looking upon as a source of inspiration, as no matter how much life puts you down and how downtrodden society may perceive you, if you keep trying and strive to be the best that you can be, then you can reach the glories of victories, which in my opinion makes Rocky a truly optimistic movie. Yep, despite the fact that Rocky doesn't win the fight and gets the shit beaten out of him, it's still a triumph and a victory. And it's easy to see why Rocky led Sylvester Stallone and Carl Weathers to cinematic greatness. Anyway, I'm Minty, and remember those turtles seen in the movie? Yeah, this is what they look like now. Feel old yet? See ya!